This is the Get Better Everyday podcast with Matt Gouget. Actionable advice from real life superheroes who, just like you, are in relentless pursuit of the best version of themselves. Whether you're just getting started or have been at it for years, my hope is that this podcast injects you with some positive energy to continue doing what brings you joy. Join me as I interview the best of the best in business, sports, and life. Let's grow together. All right. Matt Gouget, Get Better Everyday podcast. Excited to have my buddy Eddy Perez on today. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day, Eddy. I know you've got a bunch of stuff going on. So I think first and foremost, as we jump into it, just tell people, who is Eddy Perez?
Oh man, that's a fun one. I consider myself a pretty normal guy, a pretty regular guy. And I say that because I think at times individuals, when they get a little bit too full of themselves, is when they can get in a lot of trouble. So I think you always got to focus on just trying to get that self-improvement mindset that I've always been a believer in and a follower in since I can remember. But I'm like nobody else, different, first generation born in this country from Cuban immigrant parents. English is my second language. I did not grow up in South Florida. I actually grew up in inner city Atlanta, which taught me a lot of different walks of life, because that was one thing that my father and my mother were very good about. Was they said, look, there's going to be, this isn't, Miami area. There's not that many, 100% Cubans. You better get used to everybody else's culture and really get to learn and really dig in and know them, because there's not going to be that many, especially then there weren't that many Latinos as a whole in Atlanta. Now, obviously it's a lot more thriving, but, I'm 45 years old now. So that was, kindergarten was 40 years ago. It was not what it is today. It's not a top 10. It was not a top 10 city like it is today in this country, in a metropolis area. And, it was way before the Olympics. So I grew up here and stayed here, and worked my way, starting off as an originator and now, fortunately, the CEO and president of EPM.
Sweet. Yeah, I know you're doing great things at EPM and have grown a great company. What I like to pull out of folks who have reached, success on, multiple different areas is, Eddy Perez today, 45 years old, running a great mortgage company. People overestimate what they can do within a couple of years, but probably underestimate what they can do in a decade or two. And a lot of folks just can't, they couldn't imagine running a mortgage company, nationwide mortgage company, right? And so one of my favorite questions to ask folks is, where were you 2 decades ago? Because at 25, I could imagine, Eddy Perez wasn't running a large mortgage company,
I was a very new minted loan officer, very early on. And it was an organization that was, as I jokingly say, but it's true, was a total sweatshop. It really grinded you, but they trained you. That's the one thing I could be very, have a lot of gratitude for, is they did provide me a training and an opportunity to start. And it was a call center environment. So before I learned how to, build relationships with realtors, before I learned how to do things with builders, they taught the tough sales of pounding the phones, getting in there, dealing with the competition, overcoming fees. So no, at 20 years old, I literally was actually 20 years from today, I'd started literally 1 month before.
Wow. 1 month. Didn't realize we just celebrated your 20-year anniversary in this lovely mortgage industry that we both have the pleasure of being in. Good times.
Yeah. June 30th. That's when we started. I don't know why we started the last day of the month, but June 30th.
Sweet. So besides mortgage, what other passions do you have? And in the breadth of Get Better Every Day, obviously you're doing a lot of stuff in business to get better every day and push the organization along. But I'd be curious, what other passions, whether it's, sports or family stuff or what that you're getting better at every day.
Well, I prescribe to what I call a philosophy of mental fitness. And it's broken up into 3 areas. There's mental health, there's mental wellness, and there's mental strengthening. Now, what I consider mental health is not what everybody, for the most part, considers mental health. I think the mental health side is the side where you're actually working on yourself. I think that's your water intake, that's your sleep, that's your diet, that's your exercise, and that's your mindfulness. I think these are the things that you really have to work on really, really hard and really break into it, because regardless of how you're going through it, if you're not taking in enough water, you're not eating right. And I think that activity and going through that, and even some of the struggle, because you want to eat pizza, or you want to do this, or you don't want to work out, that discipline and regimen side of it really does help with your mental health. And then the next is your mental wellness, which is whoever you and your advisors are. I'm fortunate to have 7 advisors in different facets, from cultural advisor to scaling up, to as well as health, my doctor, my trainer. All these people play a key role. And I think that's the mental wellness part, and how you communicate and work with them. And then the last part is mental strengthening, which is your one-on-one time. I think that's the time that I do what you own your unique, which is really where you work on yourself. That is really the time with the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, and really the time you spend on yourself, reflecting and taking notes and reading them backwards and celebrating your wins. So I call that component, all 3 of them together, mental fitness, because I think it's not like when you work out, it's not just weight training, it's not just cardio. There's a mixture of everything you got to do, from stretching and everything. Same thing when you're working on your state of mind, that you really got to work on.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's probably relevant right now, not just the mortgage industry, but real estate and cars. I mean, everywhere we're headed into what inevitably is going to be tough times for a lot of folks. And so I think that, I'd like to dig in there a little bit. The relationship between that mental fitness and being strong mentally, how that translates into business success, and, just, health as well in general, right? Because, the mindset and your health, it translates into many ways, dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. In my truth, I think the only thing you control in this life as humans is your mindset. It's what you put into it. And look, there's moments that you could be down, and it's okay. Let yourself, have some empathy to yourself. Empathy is a 2-way street. Maybe have a day, if you're a little bit down, just absorb it, get it out, but then pick yourself up and move on the next day. You can give yourself some time to heal, but you have maybe 24 hours. And I may be being kind when I say that. You probably have only about 12. But, business isn't easy. It's not meant for everybody, running an organization and building it up. There's a lot of things that people don't understand. They see some of the successes they have, but they don't remember that I've been getting up since at 4 something in the morning for 20 years. They don't know that one of the first things I do is go work out, because it's not about looking good. It's about feeling good. And there's a lot of days you got to get that stress just out of your body. There's a reason that if you lay around, you turn into mush. But if you constantly put pressure on things and put pressure on yourself, you get stronger and you get better. I didn't say stressed, I said pressure. So, and right now you're right. I mean, we're seeing the tough times. Our industry always sees it a good 12 to 18 months before everybody else. Usually when everybody else is suffering it, we're actually having better times. No different than when people were suffering Q2, Q3 of 2020, we were already seeing better times, but we had kind of seen the pain in 17 and 18. So it's one of those, you just have to understand it, and you got to be very candid with yourself. You've got to be, like I say, kind to yourself, because it's really easy to talk about what you didn't do, or, oh my God, if I could take back this decision, but it's really about what can you do now, and how do you really handle it? And more importantly, who are your real partners that are in that with you along the way? And you just got to go, everybody to get through this cycle is going to leave a pound of flesh. They just have to understand that, because you'll pick up 8 pounds of flesh later, but you're going to have to leave a pound of flesh you're going to have to pay the price.
Yeah, I believe it. I'm trying to improve myself. And one of the best ways to do that, surround yourself with really great people, have conversations like this, the people that are winning. And, to your point, 20 straight years of consistency, 20 straight years of showing up. It's not by accident. Most folks that I talk to that have had success at any level have shown up, have not succeeded in every single venture. They've had failures, they've had mistakes, they've had all that stuff, but you continually get up. And like you said, give yourself 12 hours, get back up the next day and get back after it. What would you say attributes to being able to do that when things don't go perfectly? Because I can, without even asking the question, I know. There's been struggle. There's been things that were not perfect. There's been all kinds of roadblocks in your way. You know, the fact that you started 20 years ago, went through the crash of 2008, I know with absolute certainty that it wasn't a cakewalk, right? And so I guess what advice would you give to somebody that, regardless of what area of their life, you know, they gain 60 pounds and they're thinking to themselves, gosh, how am I going to get back? You know, what do you do to continue to, you know, head in the direction that you're wanting to head?
I think this is where self-awareness and perspective are really important. Now, I say this because it's a little bit easier for me than others. And what I mean by that is there are certain events that I remember, even in my darkest moments, that remind me that I don't have to do that again. I don't have to row a boat to freedom like my father. I didn't have a childhood friend sent to kill me because they thought I was a communist. So I don't have that. I don't have to survive a firing squad like my uncle did because they thought he was turning against the government. You know, I don't have to be 5 years old anymore and not know English and just dropped off at school. And I don't also have to be 17 years old and told that my mother's not going to see my 19th birthday. She's only going to see my 18th because it's a month away, and she's still alive to this date because my father had the courage to pay out of pocket for an experimental treatment that saved her life. So since I don't have to do those four things, it's pretty, I just got to always remember those. And in the moments, and it's like I say, it's okay to sit in the moment if something is very stressful and be honest with yourself and own it. But then after that, really dig in and see what can be done. And it may be that you have to be very vulnerable and make some tough decisions that suck and will piss people off, but it's simple. It's not going to be one of those four things.
Awesome. Awesome. I wanted to ask you, because I haven't asked you this, and I
Sure.
see it a lot. You are, maybe it's just that I've been noticing it more lately, or maybe that you've been putting more of it out there. You know, on your personal Facebook page and within your company and within the mortgage industry, just really outwardly empowering people and trying to get this message out that's just, you know, inspirational, uplifting, and I love it. You know, that stuff resonates with me. And so maybe it's just the fact that I've seen it, but you know, what I get, what inspires that? What is it that has you, you know, intentfully and intentionally out there trying to spread the positive messages you're spreading?
So there's no shortage of negativity. That's the first part. So the side of me is always very optimistic in what I feel like I owe to this country. Because that was what I always say is, you know, my parents, if you want to look at it, were basically orphaned. They weren't orphans because my grandparents were still alive, but they were orphaned from their own country. So America was like a second chance, no different to, especially for Cubans in the 60s, very similar to how America was for Jewish people after World War and during World War II and everything like that. So I feel like it's an obligation that I owe it to my fellow Americans. And I just see the opportunity because there's just too much BS in our industry, like people fighting over the silliest stuff. I'm just going to be candid with you. And I think there's a real opportunity to really collaborate and unify, because at the end of the day, it's about the consumer. And I think a lot of people forget that focus. You know, you'll see on Facebook, like you're talking about, somebody will put a CD out there and like be blasting the competitor. I hope you know that you just let every consumer think we're all crooks. Like, I don't think you really realize that, guys. Like, it really bothers me, and I can say that vulnerably, that people really self-sabotage themselves and they actually think they're doing good. That's why the truth is not owned by anybody. There's your truth, my truth, the facts, and the truth. And to get to the truth, you have to have a process. But to feel like that you own something, like it is yours, like we're doing it right, they're evil. It's very binary with me. That's why I do it. You either create drama or you empower. It's just that simple. And there's a great book about it, and I took the training on, called The Power of TED, because I'm an avid reader, that it literally talks about the drama triangle and how you flip it into the empowerment dynamic. Now, I've always been a proponent of empowerment for a long time, but that really put a lot into perspective, so much so that now I can almost spot it like that. Like, oh, somebody's being a victim or a persecutor or an enabler, a rescuer, or how do I create opportunities? How do I advise? Or how do I challenge this the right way to really elevate somebody?
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, you hit it on the head. And I think it's not even confined to the mortgage industry, but just a society as whole. You know, we're competing with each other. And I know you've got abundance mentality. I literally had this conversation at lunch today with my good friend Josh Tyndall. Is I don't have to knock down all the other buildings so that you can see my building, or that I'm the tallest building in town. In California, there's 100,000 mortgage originators. Do you think that I got to go out and disparage 999,999 of them so that I can win? No, there's so much. In our industry, there's going to be 2.5 trillion in mortgages. And, I have this thought, and so I'll share it as I'm like day-to-day life, right? And there's so much animosity, and it's red versus blue, and it's this versus that. I'm like, we're all on this floating friggin' earth, right? And we're all struggling in one way or another. Even those of us that have the best lives outwardly, like, we still have struggles. It's either, parenting or marriage or the business or health or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Why don't we just help each other out and try to get through this short little blip of 77 years or 85 years or whatever we've got on this earth, unified and doing things together. So I appreciate the fact that, what I took from you is that you're just trying to add positivity because you see enough of the negative, right? And in order to drown that out or offset it or just do your part to add value to mankind, you're out there spreading positivity. I love it, brother.
And I think people need to understand and ask themselves one question is, who's your competitor? It's just the eyeballs in the mirror. And now I think competition, to your point, there's 100,000, you said, originators in California. The competition, seeing what others do, I think that's good. But anything that you accomplish or do not accomplish has everything to do with you and nothing with them. Nothing. And I think that's where people are like the competitors and the competitor spirit. You can be competitive, but be very competitive with yourself, because that's who's going to beat whoever else. It's not this person's holding me back. That's a very, what I would say, communistic mentality and mindset and method to the madness. Now, look, I hate to say it, it works, it sells. Doesn't mean I have to prescribe to it.
Right. Yeah, I think it was Les Brown or somebody that I used to listen to when I was brand new in mortgage and really got into self-development, that, the distance between, success and failure and a lot of these things is the 4 or 5 inches right here. Right. And so mindset is super, super important. What advice would you give folks who might be, trapped with influences or surroundings or, an environment that's negative? How do you have a positive mindset amidst chaos? I know I talk to a lot of people that are, generally, some form or facet, embraced in chaos. And how do you have a positive mindset through that?
Well, the positive is you need chaos to have freedom. Extreme order means communism. So you got to have some chaos for freedom. I'm going to tell, there's nobody who's not going to have some chaos. I mean, unless it's, I get up at 10 o'clock, you basically tell me what to do. So unless you're in prison or in a communistic system, a little bit of chaos is good. And you need it, because I also think it builds resilience. I would say that those individuals really got to look inward. What do they want? What do they want out of life? They may be wanting that drama and that chaos. They may really do. They may have to make some tough choices. They may have to leave relationships. They may have to make a lot of that tough, but that's probably, it's the pursuit of self-improvement, and it's the pursuit of wanting to always feel good. I always say that about people. People who work out to look good are never going to accomplish as much as those that work out to feel good. So I think it's really striving to see what you want to really do. And it's whatever it may be. Maybe they just want to go to college and then become a teacher. Cool. Your winning is your winning. You define your wins. Only you can define it. Mine and your wins were not the same as any athletes, and vice versa. It's not the same as somebody that wants to be a career, military special forces. So you have to define your own wins. So they really need to dig deep and see what their passions are and then follow it. And if they're in bad situations, we've seen time and time again, you may have to leave, you may have to separate, you may have to do some tough things, but that's really, if that's what you want.
Right. Yeah. I picked something out that what you said that resonated with me about being resilient and adversity building character. Because I think that that's something that gets overlooked, but I think you've been in the position where you've seen, through running an organization, characteristic traits that go beyond, Harvard graduate or schooling, right? Where I've met so many people, and, mortgage being quote unquote sales, and being around real estate agents and other people that are in quote unquote sales. I think we probably see it as much as any other industry. You don't have to be, a college graduate that came from money. If you've got work ethic, if you're able to, build relationships, you can succeed at the highest level. In almost any industry, right? But in ours, we get an up close view of it. So I guess what would you say, to folks that I think where I want to really get this message across is to folks that feel like the deck is stacked against them, right? I don't have a college education, or I didn't have the opportunity to grow up in the best neighborhood, the best schools, or the best this. What would you say to those folks as far as opportunity? Because I know that you feel like there's a lot of opportunity out there, regardless of where folks come from.
They got to be really honest with themselves and let them know if they're perpetuating the victimhood. That's going to be the big thing. Anybody who says that, they're in victim status. And you got to pull yourself out of that. And you have to realize that in every heartache, there's opportunity. It's just, are you willing to pay the price? I didn't say it was going to be easy. I didn't say that it may not take 20 years. I'm not telling you that it maybe after 20 years, you don't have a slip up, you have a fall. But I promise you won't be starting from the bottom. Got to get out of that victimhood, because nothing good happens. Because what happens is, once you're a victim, things don't go your way, then you persecute people. And then to a degree, then you enable it on other people because you perpetuate their victimhood, and you're just in that drama triangle spiral. And you got to get out of it. The only way to get out of it is you got to start creating opportunities for yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, because I've got plenty of friends from all types of walks of life and backgrounds. And the cool part about that is you not only change and impact your own life, but then generations behind you, right? Where they realize, oh, it is possible. I saw dad do this, or I saw mom do this. And my auntie who went to, this school or grew up in this neighborhood end up being this person. I can do that too. So yeah, I love all the stuff you're doing with empowerment. Literally the whole existence of this podcast is to help, everybody from all walks of life get better every day. Another thing that I don't want to forget to chat with you about, because, you got the Latino background. Both of us have passion around home ownership, making that a reality for everybody. What specifically, I guess, do you have in the works or ideas for, Hispanic home ownership in the US, Latino home ownership, and things that maybe currently doing or plan to do, or ideas that would be great to see in the future along those lines?
I mean, I think as an industry, we have to understand that that's the largest first-time home buyer market now. And I know it's been talked about, but people got to really go embrace it and really learn the culture. And the good thing about the Latino culture is they're very open to anybody. It's not like you have to be Latino. That's a very misinformation. Doesn't even mean you have to speak Spanish. Does it hurt? Heck no, of course it doesn't. But they are more than inviting anybody in there, because they're usually, for the most part, Latinos are a little bit more religious in a good way. That means, more Catholic, where they're more inviting. They're willing to forgive. They're willing to bring people in. They're not exclusive. They're more inclusive. So the real opportunity is, how do we get more Latinos into homes? Because they also show a great track record of making payments, because home ownership to them is even that next level. I mean, it really is like that story of, it's your castle.
Yeah. I mean, you talked offline, and I spent almost 2 years in Mexico in 2003 and 2004. So I feel like I've got a really just love for the Hispanic community, and have worked with plenty of home buyers and great people in California. You've got it on the East Coast, probably Puerto Rico and Cuba and over there. And then I've got,
No, there's a lot of Mexico, even in Atlanta and all that.
Yeah.
Just all over. Yeah.
yeah, for sure, it's a huge demographic of folks, great folks that are looking to get into homes, and so we'll see what comes. I know that NAHREP and other organizations are doing really cool stuff around. I think where it all starts, for me and for you and for anybody in the industry, is through education, right? The more educated they are, the more they're empowered to make decisions around home ownership, because any big financial decision comes with a certain level of fear. You educate folks, and then they feel empowered to do something. So all kinds of stuff that I know you're great at. You're great at empowering people. You're great at running the mortgage business and getting up and taking care of your health and all that. This is a question I want to ask you. What is something you're not good at?
A lot of things I'm not good at.
Name something specifically that you're not good at, that you're trying to get better at, just because I think that there's some folks that, the get better everyday mindset. It's easy when you're passionate about it. It's easy when it's something that's important to you, but there's some stuff, I know that as I grew as a loan officer and I got into a position where it was more of a leadership role. So one of my shortcomings was leadership and coaching, and not that I wasn't good at it, but I didn't have a lot of exposure to it. And so, like most anything in life, the first time you sit on a bike, you're not going to be great at it, right? You gotta get some practice reps in. And so I've leaned into that. I've read books. I've done things to grow as a leader. I wonder if anything comes to mind in your life currently where you're like, you know what, this is something that's important to me, and so I'm working on it. I'm not good at it yet.
I'd say being more engaged as a father. It was one of those, I thought always, you got to give it your all. You're leading by example. And then I'd come home and I'd be exhausted. And there was a lot of times it just wasn't that engaging, with my children. And that's something that I really started changing about 3 years ago, and really focusing on being always present in the moment, whatever that moment is. Like right now, I have to be all dialed in to our conversation, because that's our moment. When this ends, whatever I'm doing next, I got to be dialed in. There's a lot of people that go home as parents and then play on their phone at 3 hours, but they're at home. Or I don't knock anybody that does this, but I always say people that spend half their days on the weekend or their whole weekend doing the yard work, that's just an excuse to look like you're at home and you're really not engaged. You're really trying to separate yourself. So I'd say I wasn't always very good at being in the moment. I always had work on my mind, and I just carried that too much with me. So learning when to unplug, like I just had a vacation recently to Cabo. That was like my first unplugged. I had one exec meeting, because we have one every Monday. And then that was pretty much it. Like I did not, my email said, good luck till the 18th. I told all the executives, if the world's ending, call me. I need to know. But I have faith that you guys can lead. So really leaning into the leaders and letting them run that show, and not feeling like I need to be checking my email, being involved, calling them. I was just say, hey guys, I know you're used to me being around. It's not that I don't care for you. I'm just going to try to unplug for my first time. So yes, unplugging and not being present. That's something I haven't been good on, that I'm definitely having to work on.
Sweet. Yeah. I've got some active involvement in working on that too. And like you said, sometimes if it's, you're working hard and you're growing an organization and you're building something, it might only be 2 or 3 hours. But if you're dialed in those 2 or 3 hours and you're in the zone, I see your TikToks with your daughter. I know you're having fun. I know you're creating memories over there at home. So it's cool stuff. I've tried to implement that too. And the wild thing is sometimes you're running 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I recently experienced this where I had like an elephant on my chest, anxiety, right? And different people need your attention. You need to answer questions on 1,000 different things. You get really, wound up, turn my phone on silent, put it in the mail slot at my house. Within 90 minutes, where'd all that anxiety go? I feel great, jumping in the pool with the kiddos and having fun and chatting with the wife. And it could have something to do with the fact that we're in this fast-paced world where everyone wants to answer right now, and multiple projects going on. So I love that advice of being present in every moment, because it's easier said than done. And those of us that are honest with ourselves know that we don't always do a great job at it. So
I agree. I have not done a good job there.
Yeah. We're getting better every day, right, Eddie?
Yeah, no,
Yep.
at least we acknowledge it. That's why I tell people, if you're aware, then you're already on the road.
Right, right. Well, I appreciate the heck out of your time, man. Where can people find you, follow you?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's all the same. You know, my handle's at Eddy, EDDYG, Perez, PEREZ Jr. That's my name now on all the, if you look up Eddy G Perez Jr., you'll find me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook. It's all the same. I was very fortunate that my handle, my name is the same on everything. Like there was no other duplicates. That's what's pretty cool about it. So, and it doesn't hurt that I spell Eddy with a Y. You know, there was probably more Eddies with an IE on that category, but it worked out very well. But yeah, definitely check me out on social media, epm.net for the organization. But I'd say definitely on social, you can get a lot, and on YouTube as well of the organization, where we post a lot of videos.
Yeah, and a bunch of empowering, uplifting stuff, which I love. Thanks again for your time, man. I really, really appreciate it. Look forward to continuing to get better with you every day, online and offline. Thanks, buddy.
All right, brother. Take care.